Okay, perfect. So the topic I basically wanted to talk about is, and it ties into a bunch of questions also that have come, like, how do I build a strategy? How do I get buy-in from people? Uh, so what I'm going to talk about is how do you optimize your product portfolio using analytics? And what it really does is essentially it's around, okay, maybe I'll go into the details later, but what I wanted to cover is one, what do I mean by a product portfolio? What exactly it is? Because that's how everybody in the company, up in the chain, lower in the chain, views your product strategy. Because based on a portfolio, you have your strategy. Then I wanted to go into like, what is this process of optimization? Then go into tools and techniques, which would tie into a lot into Region's presentation right now, because one of the tools I was going to recommend was Amplitude. I've been a user of it. It's a pretty good product. And then I wanted to go into like, yeah, you've told me all this stuff. Do you have examples of when it's actually been successfully implemented? And actually, I put up some examples for it, and I wanted to conclude with some of the key takeaways. So let's jump right into it. So when we think about a product portfolio, right? When you adopt a product portfolio, there are certain kinds of products or certain kind of categories you can pretty much divide your product into. Right at the bottom of the chain is, and bottom of the chain, the most essential part of your chain are the core products. So, what are core products? Core products are essentially your main software products. They are your main money earners, they are your main revenue. They also form the foundation of your core value proposition as a company. Then we go into complementary products, which is essentially these would essentially either be sold separately or bundled. So you would hear about them a lot as like, hey, this is part of our upsell. Essentially, what it does, it gives you additional value to customers, and it enhances and supplements the core products that you provide. The next is emerging platforms. Emerging platforms is always tricky when you talk about in a recessionary environment, but essentially these are your beta products. You have a trend, you have a gap that you can really capitalize on. So you go and innovate, and those are your emerging products. Let's be aware it needs a significant investment because it doesn't exist, and there is a ton of development and evangelizing, evangelizing required before you launch it to the market. Then we talk about the legacy products, which is basically older products. They still generate some revenue, but you are actually actively looking into whether you should retire them because one, you might have a better product, or there might not be the need that you came in with. Like, and that happens with companies all the time, right? I'll also use some examples so you'll make the connection immediately. And then there's partner products. This is a big part of any SaaS technology that you use. There's a partner ecosystem which solves adjacent problems to your core value, but essentially build an ecosystem that people get attached to, and they drive retention. They also drive more revenue, right? Because you'll always have a partner sharing um, agreement with these companies. So 15% or 10% is typically what you would hear. And then retired products. Retired products are essentially you have decided that it's end of life. There is going to be no support, but you still have some customers on it. So there's no active sales, but you still have to support maintenance and all. Um, and coming from right now, like in my current company, we are going through an acquisition. So a lot of this I've actually seen it play out because we had to optimize the whole portfolio of the company across all these sectors. So I'm using the Intel product portfolio just as an example because it's such a well-known product. I wanted to get a company which does both hardware and software and divide it. If you look at their core products, it's the microprocessors, chipsets, hardware components. Their complementary products are your drives, your network interface controllers, and any software development that Intel does. Intel actually classifies them complementary products. They might have different names for it, so don't catch me for it, but it's essentially the category that it belongs to. And then emerging product is essentially Intel building into like, hey, I think this thing is going to be compatible with the new 5G wireless technology or Internet of Things or even artificial intelligence, right? Those are the emerging products. Legacy products, well, I didn't even remember this one, but this was Itanium server processors. they still have customers on it, so they just still support it. They just don't build any more into it. And if we look at partnerships, Intel works with Microsoft to optimize Windows, and they work with VMware for virtualization. So those are the partnership product portfolio they have. And retired products is essentially they got rid of Pentium 3 processor or WiMAX wireless technology, things we used in our childhood actually. And then I wanted to give an example of a more well-known SaaS product, the Salesforce. The Salesforce, we all know their core product is their CRM system. That's their main money earner. Until the company exists, they're never going to get rid of it. Their complementary products are where they're like, hey, we have marketing automation, we have analytics, we have collaboration tools like, and then emerging products, you can see they've come up with a lot of Einstein analytics. And the latest thing they're working on is the blockchain platform to build decentralized apps. Their legacy products, Desk.com, has been gone forever, right? Still, some customers still use it or swear by it. And their partner products, so Salesforce actually has a whole marketplace created around these partnerships. So, for example, they work with AWS, providing cloud infrastructure. We were part of this partnership ecosystem in one of my previous company. Actually, it was one of my first product roles. Was a sales predictive engine built on the data that Salesforce provided. And their retired products is Do.com and now Chatter. So why I talk about this is because we need to understand this anatomy to understand the depth of the statement that effective product management and optimization is critical. Understanding every piece where it fits in is very critical, because all your top level will talk about is how do I maximize revenue? How do I make this profitable? How do I keep my customers around and prevent churn? And how do I keep them satisfied? So we'll go on to the deep details of each of these parts, but that's essentially why we are here today. So what is the process of optimization? I think such a this is such a templated way to get any kind of change into a company. So you have to define the objectives. Why are we doing this is always a very good place to start. Then we have to analyze the current portfolio, which parts are doing well, and what does that analysis even mean? Analysis obviously tied into the objective that your company defines for you, right? And then you go into evaluating the competition, because competition is always a big part of it. I know some parts don't work, but does it give me a competitive advantage, or is keeping some product that doesn't do anything more for me or doesn't generate revenue, is it giving me a leg down from my competitors, right? Then once we've evaluated the portfolio, we have to come up with the opportunities. Okay, what can I get rid of? What can I keep? What should I build upon? That's essentially where you're identifying opportunities. Then you're designing a plan to implement on those opportunities. And then you go into tools and processes where you have to talk about your data strategy, where you have to talk about, okay, what are the different tools I need? And surprisingly, a lot of companies are not aware of how deep that rabbit hole is. You could be putting a lot of tools, but not the processes around to make it work. So that is why I club them as one step. And then once everything is set, you go into implement and monitor. And does it stop with that? No. It is actually a cyclical process. You might come back to defining the objective all over again once you start monitoring, because you want to make the whole point of you doing this is being proactive about what's coming in the industry. How do I keep my product up to the market, up to the trends, in line with where we are going? So what are the different objectives of optimization? So the way I see it is divided as primary objectives, and there are some secondary objectives which can define the strategy you want to implement, right? Your primary objectives, first and foremost, you're probably all tired of hearing it. How many times we've heard it? Is maximizing revenue, improving customer satisfaction. And there are different metrics for each part to monitor them, but you have to decide. And this is literally, I can highly recommend you take this to your board if you don't have a proper strategy and say like, okay, what are your objectives? What are the top 3 things out of this that you want to do? And what are the stretch goals? The stretch goals is where secondary comes in, right? So maximizing revenue, improving customer satisfaction, resource allocation, flexibility to the market and trends, and being ahead of your competitors are always primary goals of whatever business, whether you're in hardware, software, whether you're on-prem, whether you're on SaaS. These things always stay steady. But the priority of it, that's why I didn't even put numbers. The priority of it might change by company to company and the industry you're in, right? Or even the economic environment we are in. Secondary is you're probably looking at innovation objectives. We're not innovating enough, our innovation index is not up to date, or we're losing to the market because we don't innovate. So those are your secondary goals. Risk management, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to spread them out. And I'm going to use an example, and you'll be like, whoa, that a lot of gaming franchisees actually do treat risk management as one of their primary goals. So just because I put it in the secondary, this is how the majority of the industry views. But as I said, there are always nuances that you have to keep in mind when you're actually working in a particular industry. Then cost control, you want to do something that might bring down the cost of. So, for example, if a legacy product just I have a very small audience for it. They use it, but it absolutely makes no sense for me to roll that legacy product into my core product because the cost of building it into my core product is higher than the benefit I'm going to get out of it. So cost control also becomes one of your objectives. Then branding and marketing. For example, if you're going through an acquisition, what is the combined entity? And if it's in a combined entity, you will have products that start to become redundant. They were relevant in the earlier entity, but the combined entity and what you brought the companies together for, it might not actually benefit. Or even just saying like, what helps me build trust in the market? That also are problems that come under branding and marketing. And then I think, as was previously mentioned, regulatory compliance. You might be making product changes, or you might be investing in product changes because of having to meet new laws and regulation. And I'm in the HCM space, so this is something we constantly have to monitor, and we build products. So regulatory compliance actually becomes one of our primary goals. Like if you have to introduce, let's say, a leave management or a break management solution, we are doing it because of entering the market. So regulatory compliance becomes very important once you start expanding in different regions. Because you have to be aware of the laws there, you have to be compliant. Healthcare has massive changes that come because of this one objective. So that's the pyramid of objectives. Sorry, that's the pyramid of your products. Align with your objectives. You have to find which one satisfies which objective. You might have the same product satisfying multiple goals there too, right? So now we come to the next step, which is I need to analyze my portfolio. So, what is the goal of each of these steps when I say it? Like when you say evaluating product performance, what am I really going for? So, the point of evaluating product performance is I need to see which one's generating revenue and which one's a drain on resources. The change in the role of product management in the current environment is product now isn't, the I think the most common thing I've heard is like a product manager is the CEO of his product and so on and so forth. Actually, it's multiple roles. You're not exactly the CEO. You're accountable to the CEO. You're accountable to the CFO. You're accountable to the CISO. So having that, so you are accountable on multiple sources. So one of the basic thing any CEO will care about is, are you generating revenue? Is this a drain on resources? And your metrics would be based on that. So next you would be considering market trends, right? Am I building into new technology? It is a very well-known thing that even established companies, if they don't keep up with market trends, become redundant overnight. We have way too many examples around us where we've seen whether it's Snapchat, it couldn't keep up with what the next social media wave was and it lost its market share, right? So understanding your changing consumer preferences, economic factors, what is trending, what is the new technology, where are people investing, that is all under considering market trends. And then obviously, anytime you're on product, the one thing you have to nail down is how do I assess my competition? Because I'm constantly trying to find the gaps they don't fill, or if there's an existing one, I want to do it better. So you constantly have to look at your competition. This one is the toughest one to pull out in sense of metrics. You'll get all the information that is publicly available because there's no company without a website or a certain set of profiles. But putting together metrics that can keep you competitive is actually pretty challenging. Then resource allocation. If I already know what products make money for me or what product gets me the best return on investment, then I have to determine where do I put my resources. And this might not just be an internal thing, it might even be an external thing. Which product gives customers the biggest bang for their buck, right? So your resource allocation model has to align with how your portfolio is also designed, and something that you have to actively visit as many times, especially in recessionary times. This is absolutely, absolutely important. Then identifying areas of improvement. What are the underlying problems that are keeping me from growing if as fast as I want to be, right? Um, a big area here is a lot of tech debt is identified when people analyze their portfolio using this perspective. So this is just the different perspectives. You'll have to analyze your portfolio. Like if you think yourself as a financial advisor to your company and you're telling them what's going to make them better, you have to give them analysis, and you have to give them metrics that they can wrap their heads around to know where to invest. So this is the slide where I'm like, I've actually brought up what are the metrics you're tracking, right? Evaluate product performance. You're looking at revenue. You're looking at conversion rate, and conversion rate can mean a multiple level of things. One, does the user spend enough time on my platform? Are they doing the actions I've set it up for? Like I introduced this, let's say, key holding facility or key holding function in it. Do people use it? Or I have this new chatbot. Do people even use it to ask questions that help them with the journey? So conversion rate is a big, big thing that ties into the actual user flow, right? User engagement, absolutely critical. Something that you'll probably hear multiple times is the user engagement. User engagement takes multiple shapes. In gaming industry, this is absolutely, absolutely critical. Gaming industry is one of the most profound users of analytics to analyze their portfolio, to optimize their portfolio. They basically, the speed at which they do this is essentially as fast. I mean, the biggest example I could be like, they build the plane while flying it. They build a supersonic plane while flying it. That's why your user engagement metrics can take different shapes. But if you're in B2B, you're probably not constantly looking at your engagement scores, right? You probably have a cycle where you review it, but you still need that data. User satisfaction, much easier in B2C products. User satisfaction is essentially sending out surveys and asking on feedback. Hey, did you try this new thing? How do you feel about it? You have to find the technology that would even do it in the first place. Second, there's a lot of laws and regulations which allow you to collect this data. So user engagement and user satisfaction gets very tricky depending on which area you're actually deploying in. And fourth is error rate. How many times, and personally in my life, I've actually seen a lot of products which get cut down because the error rate is too high. It's just impossible to keep up fixing bugs. At that point, it doesn't even become worth the effort, and companies start looking for an alternative. When you're looking at market trends, why I said so, the easier parts would be you'll be able to figure out your market size and growth rate. If you have a publicly traded company, this is actually much easier. If it's covered by analysts, you'll find it much easier. So some industries, you can find anything you want in this, but some industries, especially like, let's say, physical security industry where I operate, it's actually much harder to come because there's not a lot of analyst reports to go by. But and this is a whole session, by the way. Market size and growth rates is a complete session by itself. In fact, all of these are sessions by themselves. You're talking about TAM, SAM, and SOM, your total addressable market, your serviceable addressable market, and your serviceable obtainable market. And there are even other levels that companies use to drill down. Then you're looking at your user demographics. Who are my users, and aligning their demographic data with their lifetime value, with their acquisition cost. You can go down into like multiple levels, align all of them, and find out. The interesting thing would be when you have to do it for competition because you do not have access to that data. Customer behavior boils down to, okay, how much money does it take me to acquire a customer? How much money does it take me to retain a customer? And when I retain a customer or I acquire a customer, how much money do they bring to the table? And then emerging technologies, where you would probably look at your innovation index. Um, Assess competition. You're assessing your competition based on market share, your win-loss ratio. A lot of companies, this is an upcoming thing, especially in B2B, it's win-loss analysis or win-loss programs. Win-loss programs have full consulting teams who join in to provide you that information because that's how big and that's how critical it is. And just your sales revenue. You're never going to have the exact data, but having that right off your hands, especially if you and another company are the main competitor, is very, very interesting. And yeah, it's hard. It's impossible to find out. There's a lot of corporate, what do you call it, corporate espionage that goes into it, but you can get that data if you really want it. Then resource allocation is utilization rate. Where are we spending our time? And one of the products that I've recently used is amazing. It's called Jellyfish. Amazing insights on, and it allows me to calculate this way of that. They do very good around productivity. What is my revenue per employee? What is my profit per employee? Are my projects overall profitable? Like, is the gross margin of my project higher than what is there? Yeah, is it a positive? Is it negative? Is my ROI like in the figures of 200, or is my ROI literally just 2x? Like, all those questions come under resource allocation, and something a lot of companies are starting to look at. A lot of layoffs, a lot of changes in the market are measured on these parameters. And then the biggest one that product does have to look at are the employees who are operating, the employees who are involved with this. Is their ESAT improving your employee satisfaction score? Yes, you heard it right. That actually is important for product to know if we are pushing out and keeping and retaining customers and employees, not just customers. So the employee turnover rate also is very, very important there. And then identifying areas of improvement. Well, you're looking at user engagement metrics, which page has a good response time, which one people don't use, what should I not keep around, what is so bulky to support. You use the satisfaction metrics. So you can see the same metric can be used across multiple perspectives. It depends on which perspective or which story are you selling to your stakeholders at that point. Then you have technical metrics. So page load time, server time, error rate. Uh, a lot of companies ignore this and then they put it in a tech debt backlog, which is not a good practice. You need to have a continuous improvement cycle for all of these. And then obviously coming to financial metrics, your CLV, your revenue, your profit margin. Then, so what are these different tools for optimization? So I have I have the objectives figured out. Now have analyzed my portfolio. The only way I can automate it is if I have tools enabled for all of this. And this is from personal experience. I see them broken down into 6 different categories. First and foremost, business intelligence tools. Choose your tool correctly. Analyze. You want to find a tool which works with all the sources you're pulling data from. It's easy to analyze. It's easy to build. You have zero dependency, or you have very minimal dependency, and the license cost. How many users can I enable it for? Because just having your business intelligence dashboards would only get you that far. You want to go with a solution that actually operates. Like, a lot of BI tools actually do offer an unlimited option. That depends on how much volume you have. And as product people or as product leaders, you're probably negotiating that contract, right? So super important to see what you're using for your business intelligence tool. Anything that ties into your company's infrastructure really well, or company's SSO well, is going to be important. For example, if you're using Microsoft, you kind of don't want to really waste too much time with Tableau. It might be important, but you're going to pretty much get the same experience with Power BI, right? So those are things you have to think about. Then there's customer relationship platforms. Uh, you need to find a customer relation, because this is, in my experience, happened a lot. They buy a platform, but they don't have enough licenses to give. And there's always like, there has to be a team intermediary who will pull out the reports. You want a CRM platform that works for majority of your product stakeholders. You want to have valuable insights. It's the wealth of information that stays there that tells you actively what are the areas of improvement to make this sell more and to retain more customers. Your user analytics tool, so track and analyze user behavior. And right now, the market is flush with really good products actually here. Pendo, Heap, Amplitude, Mixpanel, anything you want, you can. They provide you with facility with like, okay, look at this as a product journey, tied to engagement, retention, churn rates, like whatever you want to do. There's a lot of flexibility in these tools. All of them come with the university version, which you can actually learn on. Pendo actually does provide a lot of really good certifications in their certifications, where they give you limited access to their platform, so you can actually experience it. It's totally worth it's totally worth delving in. And if you are going to be a product manager or a product leader or a product analyst, that's one of the technical skills you have to build. Then you have A/B testing tools. So personal experience, I think out of all the four or five product companies that I've been with, we've never actually used it, but it is a very good thing to do. You want to experiment with different versions of your product, especially if experience is one of your biggest differentiators. You want to make data driven decisions on the customer experience, right? A/B testing tools are very important for that. And by the way, if you want to find out any of these tools, you can literally Google, you can go to ChatGPT, and you'll get a bunch of recommendations. Then obviously product road mapping tools. You can make a simple roadmap on, let's say, Trello, or you can use ClickUp to create. It doesn't matter what tool you use, but there has to be a way for everybody to access when you've optimized that portfolio and you've prioritized things, and it has the reasoning. It gives everybody that shareable view that they can take to customers, or they can actually contribute to, right? Your product road mapping tool is essentially how the company is going to deliver everything. It's your prioritization. You have to see if it comes with inbuilt prioritization frameworks, because there's so many prioritization frameworks. There is no one size fits all. You're probably going to get a framework and manipulate it according to what your company's needs really are. And then you're in cross-functional collaboration. This, I've never actually seen anybody put that on a slide. And I can't tell you how many times it's been a struggle, because people don't realize how important that last collaboration tool is. It cannot be a tool that works for engineering. It cannot be a tool that is your road mapping tool. Your cross-functional collaboration means everybody in the company, because you are going to be launching products, and launch product is not having features, not just having features. You want to have your pricing boiled down. If you have a uh, com- PS department, you want all your professional services pricing to be done. Everybody should be ready. Everybody should be aware of what's happening at the level they understand. So having a cross-functional collaboration tool allows your teams to work together, share data, have real time. You don't have, it does, you have no idea how much it saves companies in having these tools, and how many meetings you can avoid by just having a central location for all of it. So super critical, important, super critical. So obviously, now we have the tool, now we have the analysis, we also have our strategy. What comes next? The frameworks that will resonate with the level you're introducing. Yes, there are different stakeholders, but two things I swear by that have helped me monitor the effectiveness of initiatives right off the gate are the construct of unit economics. Unit economics, and I'm specifically talking about SaaS products, is the financial metrics or the financial lens associated with acquiring, retaining, monetizing the software product itself. It is to ensure that the simple principle is the unit economics of your product should be in a way that the cost of producing it or the cost of selling and supporting it is still less than the revenue you generate from each of the units you sell. And you can define those units the way you want. It might be how many SKUs I sell, or even like how many units I sell, or how many users I get. It's completely up to you, and that's where your stakeholders come in, because you need to ask leading questions. And the point of all of it is, if what you're doing as a product team or as a product leader does not lead to profitability and sustainable growth, then don't even bother. It's a very good parameter to cut down initiatives, especially if you're an innovative company and you're constantly experimenting, having your unit economics down, and that's where even the collaboration tool. So one of my companies that I worked with, it was actually a stage in our phase development where you had to evaluate what were your unit economics. Worked massively good, because we could cut down things which we knew off the bat weren't going to get us as much benefit as we could. Not something that people who like developing products really like, but for you as a product, you want to do the least amount that gets the maximum impact, right? So I've put an example. And by the way, it took me so long to understand unit economics, like, I'm going to be honest. It wasn't an easy concept to wrap my head around the first time it was brought. I'm like, what is unit economics? What goes in? One example is actually this. This is a software product. This is an actual product. So you have a new software product. It's costing you $100 per month for the customer to use. That's how much you charge the customer. Now you've calculated your cost of goods sold, which is, what is my hosting and infrastructure cost? What is my customer support? Is a dedicated CS required for it? Is there a technical account manager assigned to it? How many bugs do I have to fix? Like, all that stuff goes into your cost of goods sold. And what your unit economics is going to do is, in this case, I take my monthly recurring revenue, I I remove the amount that I need to run this product on a monthly basis and divide it by number of customers. As I said, the number of customers here is just an example. Your unit economics, the base of that formula, is decided by your company and how your pricing is actually set up. Um, that's why people are really big advocates. If you're product led, you want product to be actively involved in your pricing strategy, or even defining your pricing strategy, because it's going to help you when you actually have to do the analysis. So let's say you have 1,000 customers using this product. Your unit economics says that for every user every month, you get 8 cents as profits. That is your profit. That's a good profit margin. It Are there companies who have way higher? Of course, they're way higher. But yeah, this is kind of an example. Like, I'm like, okay, so now I know if I grow more customers, this is how much I keep getting, right? Um, so yeah, the other thing that resonates really well, and this is from my experience presenting to, like, literally at the board level, is rule of 40. This is every investor is going to ask you this question. Are you If you applied rule of 40, would you be a company that is healthy and has a potential for growth? So you can see there's a slight difference. Unit economic tells me I am profitable and I can sustain this profit. Rule of 40 tells me that I am profitable, but I also have a steady growth rate. And what it says is, if you added your revenue growth rate and your profit margin, it should add up to at least 40. So, for example, this also is a real company that we all use. They generated 630 million in revenue in 2022. It's a completely different lens. It's Unit economic works at the unit level. Rule of 40 works at the strategic level, at the highest top line revenue level, right? To calculate the company's profitability, we look at the operating loss. Let's say it was around 150 million. So you're right now, your revenue growth rate is 76%. So if you add your revenue growth rate and you add your profit margin, you come to 133%, which means this company is, one, growing quickly. Second, it has very strong profitability margin, completely positive sign for your potential investors. And by the way, the company I'm talking about this, uh, the example I've actually used, this company right now is worth billions of dollars. So they started from 630, 150 million. You also know whether I have to reduce my cost. So your objectives, once you present this to somebody who's defining the objectives, they'll get the right objectives too. So it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. You need the data to get here. You need to convince them that it's going to be profitable. And then once you have this, you present it back for them to make the right decisions. So, and then we come to, okay, you're presenting all of this. What do I present? So basically, it's about knowing your audience. Uh, what I mean by knowing your audience, you'll never have, everybody has something to gain. So one of the articles that I recently read was Rich Mironov's complex cake problem. So he defined the product as a cake that everybody was taking a bite of without knowing when it ended, and they landed up with a plate without a cake, right? So you see, there are a lot of consumers of your cake. They don't want to listen to everything. You cannot go to a CFO and tell them about all the technical backlog that you have. But if you know the persona you're going after, you will be able to align your metrics based on that. So, how do I build a dashboard? How do I track? How do I build a dashboard? How do I get people to sign up? Is pretty much this. If you're a CEO, all when you're talking to a CEO, you want to emphasize one, profitability, and what's the return on investment. You'll constantly be asked about exactly that thing. What's your revenue growth? What's your market share? Customer acquisition costs? What is your lifetime value? What is your net promoter score? That's what the CEO really wants to see. A CFO actually wants to see how profitable is the product. So you're talking about profit margin, return on investment, what is the cost of goods sold, what is, again, CAC, CLV, everybody's going to use, right? The CMO wants to see if there is enough retention and customer satisfaction, because the CMO is going to be your partner in this journey, because they're going to be doing the lead gen side of things, right? So they need to know that one, your product is worth their time, and whether the product you're putting in the highlight is going to get more leads, right? So what is he going to look? CAC, CLV, what is the churn rate? What is the customer engagement? What is the NPS? It gives them enough insights to design their strategies, right? A COO, they are looking for your production efficiency. They are looking for how efficient you are. They want to be able to scale the business, and they want to know that whatever we are doing is efficient. So you're talking about cycle time. You're talking about your defect rate. You're going to talk about how many were on time delivery, because he needs to know that. And then you have your CTO. The CTO wants to know about the technical capabilities and the innovation that goes in. So what's your user engagement? What's your uptime? What's your scalability? So when you're building your dashboards, having the right persona in your mind while designing it and putting the right metrics in your place is what will get you these people's attention, the right person's attention. And then talking about CISO, CISO has actually become really important. My last company I worked for, actually, their main selling persona was the CISO. What did they care about? Security metrics. Are you fixing the vulnerabilities? Are there a lot of threats? How are you closing threats? How do you respond to threats? Right? And data privacy compliance, big thing that a CISO will, it's probably the top of their agenda. Are we privacy compliant? What do we need to do? Like, that's going to be the metrics that the CISO wants to look at. He doesn't care about your return on investment. He cares about it, but not as much, right? And then obviously, since we are all going to be in product, we report to the CPO. The CPO wants to know how fast are we shipping these things to market or launching. Shipping is shipping is not even the right term, actually. It is the time to market. How fast are we taking it to the market? Are we faster than our competitors? Are customers satisfied with it? Are they recommending our product? NPS, you'll see it's scattered across the board. It's very tricky to get, because a lot of users will not want to give feedback, not because they don't like it, they just don't have the time for it, right? Uh, so you need to be able to have a certain volume. You need to know what your sample size is. And then, yes, a CPO is one who cares about unit economics. When we are doing this, what's coming out of it? How are we launching? Is this a successful launch or not? So let's say some examples of successful product optimization. And yes, as I've mentioned already, I'm not a gamer, but I freaking love the analytics on the gaming industry. Gaming industry, EA Sports I picked up because it's literally the top of how they use analytics. And gaming industries really invest in their internal analytics infrastructure. They will have their own service. they will have a team, and some of these companies have teams of thousands of people just doing their analytics platform. So, for example, EA Sports, as we are familiar with, looking at the product portfolio, they actually have a lot of games that they're franchised around, right? What is their main goal? They want to have one. They don't want to put all their eggs in one basket, even though FIFA is their main money earner right now, but they don't want to just depend on it. They want to appeal to all the kinds of audience, right? One thing, what is the biggest key metric they focus? Player engagement. Any game which does not have a good player engagement, they'll go back and see everything. They'll do session replays, they'll do purchase frequency, they're selling you things, you're not buying. They're going to be obsessed with it. That's literally that's literally every game, even the mobile gaming industry, big on this. User retention. What's their average session? How long would what's their average session length? How long did they buy the in-app products we were selling? How much are they spending? The player engagement is literally their bread and butter. And then you can see when FIFA was introduced, they noticed a significant increase in player engagement. So what did they do next? They tracked the success and made improvements on the game based on player feedback. What do you like? What do you not like? Are you going to recommend this? It's it's a massive obsession for them. And then when it was sales metrics, total sales, revenue per user, lifetime customer value, it was all about profitability and ROI. And did one team do it? Probably not. There were multiple teams monitoring this, right? So absolute great example of how data-driven decisions are made and how data can drive your product strategy and your profitability. And they use this exclusively to actually retire games, and they also use it to exclusively invest. So if they have a trend that is going to change the world, they're going to invest in it and then monitor and cut it out if it doesn't. They retire products way faster, right? That we're all familiar with. So another one I wanted to pick up was the B2B example, because that was kind of a B2C example, is Salesforce. Salesforce does this really well. Salesforce goes with, okay, what are my platforms? What is it supposed to do? What is my main goal? The one thing Salesforce is obsessed about is scalability and customizability. They don't want to customize it. They don't want to have a professional services department. They probably have. I'm not questioning that, but they don't want to do a lot of customization. Smaller companies dedicate a lot into like, oh yeah, it is a SaaS product, but we can give you this other thing that you need to run this in your platform, right? So Sales Cloud, obsession with customer acquisition costs, customer lifetime value, revenue, monthly recurring revenue, your MRR or your ARR, right? Obsessed with it. It's what they, and you can see even across Marketing Cloud, Service Cloud, they kind of stick to it, but you can notice the slight difference between Einstein Analytics. Einstein Analytics was supposed to gain insights into customer behavior, performance, and basically have powerful analytics around it. So for them, adoption rate, engagement rate, performance, platform performance was massively huge. I was actually working with the team that came up with the Einstein Analytics when they were acquired with Salesforce, and they were obsessed with how the platform performed. Because for them, when they came up with the beta version at a price point, it didn't sell because it wasn't a very performant application. But the next version, they killed it. It was literally the Eiffel Tower of analytics products at that point. Um, so what's my conclusion? The conclusion here is optimizing your product portfolio in both regular and recessionary times is absolutely important. That is the main goal of you having a product team or a product director or a CPO in place, and you're constantly going to be asked about it. What is the process of optimization? You identify objectives, you analyze your current portfolio, you look at the market and competitive landscape, you look at whatever data will help you make that decision, you analyze it, and then you optimize your resource allocation based on that. Metrics play a critical role, but being able to communicate to the right functional leader with the right metric and the right framework is super important. Because you can have all this data and nobody would care, but if you give them, okay, why you're doing it. The why is very important, and the why is what drives all these metrics, right? Cross-functional collaboration tools and processes surrounding these frameworks, surrounding these products is absolutely important. And then some of the examples I used was I didn't use Apple product lineup, but definitely worth reading because Apple is obsessed with this, and they do it both on their B2C and their B2B side. And different C-level stakeholders have different metrics. It's the story you want to relay. So know the audience, know the story you're relaying, and then go for it. But yeah, have an understanding of the categorization of your product. But yeah, that was it. Thank you so much. And yeah, time for any questions.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I'm going to jump back to the stage here. Yeah, I might move myself to the left. Okay. Maybe if you want to close your screen share there. Okay, here we are, back here. Oh, good. Navigating Crowdcast. Awesome. So yeah, once again, fantastic presentation. I want to ask our audience, you want to put some hand clap emojis, some smiley face emojis, whatever you like to show your appreciation. Yeah, lots of super valuable insights there. We do have a bunch of questions here. So Julian has asked, please share any book recommendations for learning more on things like the Rule of 40 and unit economics. Maybe if you have something that you can pop in the chat there, Purnima, that'd be awesome.
So as I said, I didn't have a lot of success understanding it from books. I actually followed a lot of influences because it's a difficult concept. Everybody writes about it. I actually found blogs that explained it better. And then obviously I went to my boss because when he was hiring me, that's the first question. I'm like, can you explain unit economics to me? Because I haven't understood. And he explained it to me. So I'm like, oh, now it makes sense. So I can share a couple of links with you here. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, maybe if you want to pop them in the chat, that'd be great. We have a question from Anand. Anand has said that hosting and infrastructure costs would be variables depending upon the user and may not be linear. In such a case, how would you attribute and calculate them?
It depends if your platform has a high volume of users. So in my case, and in products case, I always tell my team, you don't need the exact value, you need a good approximation. So the way I get it is I go to my technology teams, I ask them, they have their numbers because they have to maintain it, and then I just factor it in as a percentage of the overall cost. So let's say Jellyfish says that we spend around 300K developing it. I know that a 10-15% markup is essentially what my hosting and infra cost is. Depends on the company, right? One of my companies wasn't high volume users because they were targeting directly security officers, but the second one has giant infrastructure costs. So for them, the way we do it is we capture how many users they even onboard during their pricing strategy. Sorry, during their pricing and whatever when they send out the code. So I have that number, and it was okay. It needed a lot of uh, tricky experimentation. So I basically started aligning a historical cost with the volume of users that were increasing. And I drew a regression model. So I had my number from there if anybody wants to get specific. But if you want to avoid it, a simple percentage is always a good thing, especially because you're going to use it in your business cases, right?
Cool. Thanks so much. We'll jump to our next question there. Again, Julian, on a streak tonight. Julian has asked, how would you prioritize from new initiatives versus backlog issues if your team is already having their plates full every day in sprints, especially if the team was used to project management before having hired product managers?
So this is a big shift. Project management, even though it's literally just one or two alphabets, separate by two alphabets, it's a big shift for teams. The way you do it is one, move them to an agile framework that works for you, and then have an objective of that sprint or of that. have an objective every sprint, and you really, really have to sell it to teams, by the way. It's I even right now I get pushback when like, oh, why aren't we doing maintenance issues? Why do we have to work on these new initiatives? You really have to drive the objective behind it. So for example, what are we gaining out of it, right? Engineering teams, you really I like I like the format of using the trio of design, product, and engineering in one little bubble when we are actually creating an initiative. And what it does is it gets a buy-in from engineering side who's going to sell the team on it, because they might not listen to you, but they might listen to their lead, right? So you have to convince the main person on that team. So the lead is always a good start. We used to even have a model where we used to call it the sprint weasel. And essentially, it was an assigned person who would work with the product and the design team. So they would see why we are doing it. We would take them on customer calls, we would take them in strategic calls. We actually made them a stakeholder. They saw the reasons for our priority. So explaining your prioritization reasons is important. Very important to be transparent about it, right? If you are in a situation where you don't have a way out of it, that's literally you become vulnerable. You tell your teams that. So yeah, shifting from project management, you're always going to have a challenge, but selling people. So another thing that I have done to move companies from project to product is I explain how project is cost centric and product is profit centric. Why? Because project management works on the fact that we have to keep the cost low. Product works on what's the future that's going to make us really successful, right? Um, so I would say it's a bunch of different approaches you can take, and it's a practical thing. But yeah.
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, good questions there. Another question from Julian is, what is your favorite KPI or metric for B2B products?
It's actually customer lifetime value, because it's that one term which entails how many did we acquire, how many customers did we keep, how long were they spending time on this. So other than just engagement, I think my biggest thing is customer lifetime value. And yes, I'm obsessed with ARRs when it comes to new initiatives. If you don't add if your new initiative, you spend 1 million and you didn't add 1 million to the pipeline, then it was a bad initiative and you have lessons to be learned. Well, sometimes it's time factor also. Oh, it's going to take time. We're going to have adopters. That's fine. But if you're not making that money back, then you're not doing something right.
Very good. I think that's all the questions that we'd had for your presentation there, Purnima. So yeah, super grateful for your time and insights there. I took a bunch of screenshots. Obviously, we're going to record this. We're going to chop it up over the next couple of weeks, push it onto our YouTube channel. I'm sure this content was extremely valuable for a lot of people out there. So again, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. Any final words there?
No, if anybody wants to connect with me, I'm pretty fairly easy to connect on LinkedIn, and I can even post my channel. So if I didn't have a chance to answer any questions, I love talking about product strategy. I'm that annoying person who'll probably keep saying it a lot more times than people like it. But yeah, in case you want to chat up, that's my LinkedIn. Send me a message, and I would love to connect with everybody.
Well, I think you're in a very safe space here, Purnima, because everybody likes hearing what you have to say. So that's what we're all here for, to hear you kind of sharing your thoughts. And again, our unofficial tagline is to hear smart people talk. And I think our audience has certainly got a lot of that, got a lot of bang for their I was going to say bang for buck, but a lot of return on their time tonight. So again, Purnima, thanks so much for stepping up and being a part of the event series tonight. And yeah, I'm really grateful for your time. We'll see you on the tracks.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Awesome.
good
Take care. Cheers.
Bye bye.